Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really proud today to be speaking to you all professionals in the field. And also, I'm really honored to be among the great names that are speaking here in the Women in Cybersecurity first virtual conference. So today we'll be talking about the building a robust performance management. So I'll start first giving you a brief about myself so you can know me more. My name is Arwa Al-Hamad. I work in the cybersecurity field more than 10 years. I got my master's degree in security in computing from Royal Melbourne University of Technology. I had several experiences in different local and international organizations, such as Sadat Payment System, RMIT University, Accenture Consultation Group, Saudi Stock Exchange, and a little bit of the government, General Entertainment Authority. And since 2 years, I'm working with and proud to be working with STC Group. I hold some professional certificates as well in the field. And I'll just take you to the juicy part of the presentation. So today we're going to talk about how to build a robust performance management system for your organization. There's a very well-known quote which says, if you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. Things you can't measure, things you measure tend to improve. So many people could oppose this, or many people are opposing this if you read online. However, for myself, I really believe in this, and this was our guide to optimizing and making sure that we always do continuous improvement in cybersecurity. So if we start with the pyramid of the performance management, we look at it from the top to the bottom. First of all, to do a performance management system, you first need to understand what is your mission and vision in the cybersecurity and in your organization. And then you build your own strategy. And then after that, you create or develop the processes that will support you in achieving the strategy and implement any systems needed for that. Then you develop the performance management and start executing it. And finally, you would start seeing behaviors and actions being done based on the performance and analysis. And finally, you will start seeing results. So the big question we ask ourselves before we build the performance management is, where are we now? Where do we stand? And then we have to understand that and measure where are we, which is point A, and where we want to be, which is point B. So the steps for doing that and understanding where we are and where we want to be, I'll take you through them in this presentation. So from our experience, from the humble experience that we have in the cybersecurity, we saw that the best approach is a four-step approach, which is, first of all, you choose your framework, then you map your controls to the frameworks, you build your strategy, execute, and measure performance. And we're going to go through all of these steps in high level, and maybe we're going to give the big chunk of this presentation to the last step, which is execute and measure performance. So the first step is choosing your framework. So there's lots of frameworks out there. Which one should we choose? This is the biggest question that we get. So the answer to this question is always based on your business need and your organization. So we have different kinds of frameworks. I'll take you through each one of them and tell you a bit of the difference and how each one could support you. So the first one is the control framework, which is it's a framework that has several controls related to cybersecurity. An example of it is the well-known NIST. And in Saudi Arabia, we have the National Cybersecurity Authority has the ECC controls, and also we have the CIS controls. So these are a set of controls that, let's say there's the basic or 101 that the organizations need to have. So you choose which one is most applicable to you. The second type of framework is the program framework. So this helps you translate what you are doing to the management. So we're looking at a full program that the management can understand. For example, the ISO 27001. So this is a full program with many domains touching physical security, touching HR, the management commitment, and so on. So we can use what we're doing here. We're not going to choose only one framework. We're going to choose a set of frameworks, and then we're going to map them together, and we'll see an example in the upcoming slide. The last one is the risk framework. So we all know cybersecurity is all about assessing risk. So you always have a risk that you need to mitigate, and this is where you put the controls to mitigate against this risk. So the risk frameworks that are well known and used a lot is there's the FAIR model, the CIS risk framework, there's the ISO 27005, there's the NIST 800, 39, 37, and 30. So this will help you to prioritize which ones you will start before the other. And we will see this in the upcoming slides. So as we see here in the picture, control framework, program framework, and the risk framework, we can use a mix of them all. This is one example of a mixed or a customized framework where we looked at, as you see on the right side of the slide, there's the National Cybersecurity Authority, ECC controls, the ISO 27001, and the NIST. We did a mix of it, and we came up with this, let's call it a capability house. This capability house has 5 main pillars. Let's say the first pillar is the direction, second one, governance, risk, compliance, and then the last one is the cyber defense. Of course, this is customized. Every organization should customize it the way they see fit. You can take the framework as is. So in this example, what we did is we took the first pillar, the direction, and we saw what are the controls that or the capabilities that need to be built in the organization. We looked at strategy, business alignment, operating model, the capabilities, the awareness and training, investment and budget, performance management. All of these help the direct the cybersecurity program. So this is the first step that you need to set, and then you start enforcing the strategy by doing the governance, risk, compliance, and finally protect the business through the cybersecurity defense, where you look at the technical part, the endpoint protection, the threat intelligence, the identity and access management, and so on. So this is just a sample of how we mix and match with different frameworks to get with a customized one that is applicable to you. Of course, it's really important to make sure that in your organization, if you are subject to any regulations, that you take it into consideration as well. So this is another example how we're mapping controls to the framework. So we have the identify, protect, detect, response. These are from the NIST framework. And then we have the CIS controls on the right side, and we're mapping it to each step. So this is another way of doing it. And of course, after the first example I gave you about the capability house, which we will be using throughout this presentation, after you have mapped these controls to your capability house or to whatever framework you are using, you start measuring and performing a health check to see where are you exactly. So after you know where you are, you've done the health check, you start building your strategy. And this is one of the most important steps because it will, as I said, give you the direction. So you need to understand what is the vision and mission of your cybersecurity program. How do we come up with this? We have to look at the trends in the industry of your organization. You need to look at the trends in the cybersecurity that's going on. You need to look at the strategy of your organization to make sure that your vision and mission will be aligned with it. And also you need to do a health check, the one we did in step 2. And after that, you start interviewing your stakeholders and understanding from them what are the expectations, how you can enable the business and enable the strategy and be part of it. And then you start preparing a set of statements. And the last phase is you take it through iterations, refining it until you get the endorsement from the top management. Endorsement from the top management is key for the success of your strategy because they will give you the support, they will give you the commitment if they endorse your strategy. After you created your vision and mission, you start creating your strategic objectives. How do we do the strategic objectives? It's what are the gaps after performing the health check? What are the gaps that we want to close and how we're going to close them? So you start prioritizing these as strategic objectives. And you can prioritize it using the risk frameworks that we discussed earlier. So you prioritize categorize them and you put some timelines to it, and this will help you define the timeline of your strategy, how long it will take you to close these strategic objectives. Finally, we'll take the strategic initiatives, delivery choices, and enablers, these all together. And this is after you defined your objectives, you start asking yourself, what are the initiatives or the projects that I need to come up with to close these gaps? And you start listing them. And also you put timeline for them, phase them, which one you're going to start the first year, which one the second year, based on the risk assessment that you have done before. So some of them have higher likelihood, higher impact, and these are the ones that you would always tend to as early as possible based on the risk rating. Of course, you can use also a SWOT analysis, the checking what are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, to make sure also to consider these as initiatives in your strategy. You also need to define what are the resources that you need in terms of budget, in terms of resources, and the delivery choices. Are you going to outsource this? Are you going to hire staff for it? Are you going to do it just in-house, or how are you going to work on it? And then the final step, this is the juicy part of our presentation, which is the KPIs and metrics. We're going to talk about the performance management and how you build a robust one. So all these steps before we talked about, these are prerequisites for building your robust performance management system. So going to step 4, execute and measure. What are the key questions or the C-suite questions that will be asked by the board of directors, from the, for example, the CEO, and so on? They will ask you 3 questions. Are we on track? After they gave you, of course, the money and the budget, the resources that you need to start executing your strategy. So now you need to give them assurance that there will be return on investment as you promised, and you will achieve your strategic objectives. So you need to answer the first question, are we on track? The second question, are we improving? So you need to know where you are, point A, as we said, and point B, where we want to be, and are we improving or not? And the last questions related to, are we realizing business impact? And mainly, this is really the questions that you need to report to the highest management that you have. So we'll go through each one of them. If we ask ourselves, how are we progressing? Are we on track? We're actually asking ourselves, do you remember when we developed the strategic initiatives and we put a timeline for it? Now we start monitoring as pure project management. How are we executing against our plan? So let's say we completed 10% of our strategy, which is the total set of initiatives, and how you're progressing based on the plan. So this is maybe straightforward. We come to the second question, which is, are we improving? This is really hard to translate the business, the technical language to the business language. So you need to talk to the management and tell them how you're improving in numbers, and also in relation to the business and how you are enabling their strategy or aligning with it. So this is example of, we talked about the customized framework that we have done. We called it the capability house, where we have a set of boxes, and in each box we mapped a set of controls related to ISO, NIST, or ACC. For each pillar, the first thing we do, as you see here, for example, the direction, we put 20%. This is illustrative, and you can put the percentages based on what you see fit or what is aligned with your organization. So the 20% for the direction, we put 10% for governance, 10 for risk, 10 for compliance, and 50 for cyber defense. So this is giving a weight for the pillar inside the capability house to know overall the maturity. So why would we give the cyber defense 50%? Of course, there's multiple ways, and you need to see which approach is most fit to you. However, the approach that we looked at here is, we took the different frameworks that we put in we considered in this capability house, and we started looking at the set of controls and seeing these controls, where do they fit more? So we saw the majority of the controls are in the cyber defense, let's say 50% approximately. That's why we gave the cyber defense 50% weight. And for the rest, the same. We looked at the controls related to risk, compliance, the governance, and the the ones related to the direction or the strategy, and the finances and so on. So after we gave the pillar a weight, now we start giving the boxes inside, which are the capabilities that need to be built, we give them weights as well. So as you see here in the example of the governance, we can see there's the governance framework, policy, standards, security architecture, physical and facilities management, and resilience setup. So if we gave this pillar 10%, we need to also give these boxes that are inside this pillar a percentage as well. So based on the importance and based on, let's say, the control and based on your strategy and what you want to achieve and which ones you need to achieve first. So we defined a weight for it. And also we define a set of metrics, which are KPIs that are linked to these controls and this capability. And I'll show you an example of the KPI card that you can use as a template to know what are the main pieces of information that you need to assign. So if we take it, we can read it here. Let's say the policies and standards have a weight of 25% of the governance pillar. And the governance pillar has a weight of 10% of the whole cybersecurity maturity. This is how we read it. And the green box here is telling you how many metrics you have. And this is telling you the target, and we'll talk about the target later. I also added here an example of the endpoint protection because in the upcoming slides, we will have an example and see how this works. So if we talk about each box, we'll have a set of metrics, which are KPIs. This is a sample of how you can define your KPI. So first of all, you have to link it to the initiative or to the box that you're talking about. So for example, we can say endpoint protection here. And then owner. You need to assign an owner because if there's a KPI with no owner, no one will look at it. But if there's an owner that knows that he will report this KPI and the progress to it to the upper management, then you will start seeing commitment and progress from others. Then you have to define the measuring frequency. So there are some KPIs that you need to measure on monthly basis, some of them quarterly basis, some of them biannual, some of them annual, based on the business need. You don't want to be wasting your performance team efforts and time by measuring everything on monthly basis. And you know that, for example, some KPIs such as reviewing the policies and procedure every 12 months, this happens annually. So the frequency needs to be annually, not to waste their time. However, in other KPIs, you need to analyze to see, are we progressing to make sure that by end of year, we will reach our ultimate target or not. So in these KPIs, you would want to look at it on, let's say, monthly basis. A sample of it, it's, let's say, the endpoint protection that we will come to later. We have one of the KPIs is the patch level. Are all these endpoints patched or not? So this is one of the KPIs that you would like to see on monthly basis to make sure that you take action as soon as possible. Another example, let's say the incident, how many incidents you have. You would like to see a trend, so you measure it more frequently to make sure that if there's an action that needs to be taken, you take it as early as possible. The last field on the top is the data source. So as much as possible, you try to automate your KPIs and make sure that you try to get the the results from the directly, because this will prevent or this will help minimize the human error rate, which is well known and maybe universal. They say that the human error rate is between 10 to 30%. So as much as possible, we try to minimize it by taking the data directly from the source, and this will help us even easier validate the data from the system directly. Then you need to have a description, rationale, why you're measuring this KPI, how it will support you, and how it's linked to your strategy and to the the ultimate value that you want to realize. And then you need to have a SMART KPI in the formula, so specific, measurable, achievable, time bound, and you need to realize the impact. So this is the formula, and as much as possible, try to use very specific ones, because if you leave it to if you leave some space for a debate, then you will keep on debating the performance team with the team teams that they're collecting the data on how you're measuring it, and you will not see the trends, and you cannot analyze in a way that will give you value. So the last line we see here, we have maturity levels. So you define the levels that you want. In our case, we looked at it from 0 to 5, which is 0 missing and 5 is best in class. And in between is the different maturity levels: ad hoc, reactive, organized, and integrated. Of course, you can have a different, whatever you are using in your organization, it's better to make it all the same way of measurement, so management can understand very easily when you show them maturity 5 or maturity 0 or level 5 and so on. The targets, we're going to talk about it in the end of the presentation, how you set the targets. However, it's really important, using the time bounds that you set in your strategic objectives, that you put also KPIs, how much you will see the progress from year to year. So you put the target for the first year, second year, third year, based on how long your strategy is. The final one is the weight. So as we said, one box in the capability could have 5 metrics, 7 metrics, 2 metrics, or even 1 metric. So you need to give it an overall weight out of 5 to be able to measure this KPI, how much is it contributing to the overall maturity of the cybersecurity. So, and this will also help the owners to understand how they are contributing, and each KPI, how it's doing, making a difference. Like, the next step here, we're talking about the metrics. As we said, metrics can be quantitative, measured by numbers, or could be qualitative. If they are qualitative, as much as possible, if we can make it quantitative, that would be better. And as I said, as much as possible, if you can integrate with the system directly to get the data without human intervention, that would be the best or the optimum way. However, in many cases, qualitative is needed, because some of the things you would look at it, is it approved, is it developed, is it reviewed, and so on. So this you would put, for this is a sample of it, you would put different levels and say, if it's not developed, it would be maturity 0, as we saw in the previous slide. And if it's developed, it would go to the next level. And let's say if it was developed, approved, and it was reviewed in the last 12 months, then this will be the best in class, which is maturity 5. So also, if you're not automating, as we said, some of the KPIs you cannot automate and you cannot read the results directly from the system, you would need to ask for evidence to validate, and to make sure that you have the proper evidence to show the auditors, if you have auditors coming later on, and to make sure that you're giving trust in your process, that you have evidences for each KPI. So if you're looking at approval, you would look at email or minutes of meeting and gather them. And if you're doing the reviewing of the framework, you would look at the change log in the document itself. So this is one example of the endpoint protection. So if we took, and you remember our customized house, we had the last level, which is the cyber defense. One of the capabilities that we wanted to build was the endpoint protection. This is an illustrative example. If we have in the endpoint protection box 3 metrics, these 3 metrics, we will consider the first one is the endpoint encryption. Are we encrypting our laptops and desktops? The second metric could be the patch level, as we discussed earlier. Are we patching, for example, the Windows, and we're patching the antivirus and so on? And the last one is the MDM, the mobile device management. Are we enforcing it or not on the endpoints? So if we have 3 metrics, you need to put a weight for each one. In this example, we believe that patching is maybe the #1 rule in cybersecurity. Always they say patch, patch, patch. So patching level took the weight 3 out of 5 in this box. And then the endpoint protection, we gave it 1 out of 5, and the mobile device management 1 out of 5. And again, these weights, you need to define them based on the risk assessment that you have done to understand the likelihood and the impact that each control is contributing to your organization. So let's say here, if this is our KPIs, we would look on the right side. This is the scoring. So let's say, for example, the first one, the endpoint encryption, we have fully encrypted all our endpoints. So we got a full mark here, 1 out of 1. And in the patch level, we have, let's say, only 33%, which is 1 out of 3. And the MDM, an example is only we patched 50%, we enforced 50% of the endpoints to use MDM. So the total is 1 and 1 and 0.5, 2.5 out of 5. And then if we start measuring this on monthly basis, we will see that each month we will have more endpoints patched, more MDM enforced, and we will see this this box maturity going up and rising by time. So the last question and the most important question, I see the top management and we report to them always, are we achieving our objectives and ultimate vision? So you set the vision and mission and you got their endorsement on it, and also on the strategy, including the strategic objectives. Now they need to know, are we realizing the business impact or not? So we need to look at it in a different way and remove ourselves from the mindset of the technical cybersecurity professional and put ourselves in the mind of our CEO or board of directors and see what do they understand and how we can show them that this strategy and their investment is bringing value to the organization. So we would look at one of the things that keep is important to the management is the regulations, because you need to align with comply with the regulations. Otherwise, you can get fined or you can get sanctioned, and it could have big impact on the organization. So first of all, you need one of the things that we report to the management is that always our policies, frameworks, and standards are fully aligned with the regulations. The second thing is to give them assurance by telling them that we are complying with the legal and regulatory requirements and with our internal cyber security requirements, which are the policies that have been set. So if you give them on a high level, tell them the percentage of compliance is this much, that would be something they can understand and they can see that there is improvement happening. Another thing is the strategy. So they endorsed the strategy, they gave you the budget, and now they want to see how are you progressing. So we said the first question was, are we on track? So we take the overall number, how well we are progressing as a final percentage, and we show it also to the top management, tell them we completed 50% of the strategy. And at the same time, we report to them the maturity level, which is the question, are we improving? So if we put these all together, the management will have the view of seeing, okay, we are spending this much and we have completed this much of the strategy and we have improved, for example, this much. Let's say we raised 1 level in the maturity. So it will show them that everything is working together in a really smooth way and we are realizing the impact. We always say in cybersecurity, it's not the matter of if, it's the matter of when. So we know that also there's another saying that they say there's 2 types of organizations that have been compromised and organizations that have been compromised and still don't know about it. So the thing is, we all know that everyone is vulnerable for an attack, but are we ready or not? Are we resilient to be able to handle this incident or not? So this is a question, it's a good metric to show to the management the average time to respond to an incident, or to mitigate to an incident, or to contain an incident. So you can choose which one of them is more applicable to your management and show them that by time you are reducing this time. So you take the full average. This will show them that you are building the capabilities to be able to be more resilient and ready for any type of incident. Now about the target. what is our target? So we know where point A and we know where we want to reach, but how did we identify where we want to be in point B? So we look at the health check, which is our current maturity after we build our performance, and see the baseline where we stand. And then we look at the industry benchmark, other organizations in the same industry, how well are they doing in these controls or in this cybersecurity. And the last thing is target setting workshops, where you start working with senior management to give them the suggested maturity level and the target and what you want and the justification behind it to get their endorsement. To continuously improve your security effectiveness, you'll need to always keep on monitoring. We put some frequencies to be able to monitor and analyze. So different metrics, if you look at them, you would see some metrics going up together or one metric going up, another going down, and you can analyze and see what is the rationale behind this changes that are happening. And sometimes there is you see something happening in this dashboard, you know that it could be related to an external event that is happening, or you need to take action rapidly. So you need to monitor and analyze the metrics frequently as possible to be able to identify the issues and challenges and provide recommendations to rectify in a timely manner. When these recommendations have been identified, then you need to take action rapidly to efficiently and effectively improve the overall security. So you have sometimes, if you take the action as early as possible, it would cost you less and it will help you go back on track. And one of the really success factors in the performance management is establishing a performance management committee with all the stakeholders that are involved in your performance management. This committee, this is an example of the committee charter that you will need to identify. You need to identify who are the members, what are the goals of this committee, what is the agenda of it, what is the expected outcomes and deliverables, how frequently they would meet, and the communication channels. From experience, this is a pillar for the success of the performance management. If you have everyone in one room seeing the results and seeing the impact that they all are doing, they're contributing little in this maturity, and then they see it overall and see how others are progressing, this will help improve. Also, reporting on monthly basis to the management. I would recommend nothing less than monthly, nothing more than monthly, sorry. So on monthly basis, you report to the management, they understand how we're going, and then if the owners need to be stakeholders in these committee. So if they see any they're facing any challenges or obstacles in achieving their KPI, or we can see one KPI that is flagged that is not progressing, then at that time everyone is there. We can take a decision what kind of support is needed and take action as soon as possible to rectify it. So make sure that you have the right people in this committee and the right stakeholders. Finally, going to our last slide, what are the key elements for successful cybersecurity program? From experience, strategy. Everyone needs to be aligned on the strategy, and not about having an endorsed strategy, having a strategy that is in the DNA of all employees. They understand it and they know it by heart, and they are all working towards it. So everything they do, they can easily link it to the cybersecurity strategy, which is linked to the organization strategy. The second thing is the operating model. So you need to, after you have a strategy, you need to have an operating model showing how things will work together and how different departments will work together as well, and the roles and responsibilities, the RACI models that are needed for this strategy to work. So everyone knows their part and their responsibility. This is really important to eliminate the silos and work as a team. The third element is the policies, which is a unified cybersecurity policies supported with standards and aligned with best practices. So if you have a policy, you can go to the other departments or you can audit and give assurance to the compliance with these policies. So this gives a direction to the whole organization. They know what they can do and what they cannot do and what they need to do to make sure that the organization is secure. The third element is the organization structure. Of course, after you have a new strategy and operating model, you would start defining, you're developing an organization structure that can serve the strategy. So maybe, for example, you need new teams to be created. Maybe you're going to outsource certain functions. Maybe you're going to need to have a certain department going up a level to start reporting to the management on the progress, for example. And the fifth element is the performance management. And this is, as we go back to our first slide, if you can't measure it, you cannot manage it. So you need to have a robust performance management practice with a committee. So you report on a regular basis to make sure you analyze the results and you take actions in a timely manner to rectify and make sure that you're on track. Finally, the dashboards. If you have automated dashboard, live dashboard that management can see, and everyone of the stakeholders that are contributing also can see live, and they see the simple progress that they do, how it's ultimately affecting the maturity, that would also be a key element for the success. And I think we're to the end. Thank you very much. It's really an honor, and I'll be waiting for any questions if you have. So I can see the first question here says, department strategies are normally a cascade from the corporate strategy. In the absence of information security objectives and the corporate strategy, what is your advice on how to develop such strategy? So when you start looking at the corporate strategy, I understand some of them, they would not consider cybersecurity. Maybe the cybersecurity wasn't there at that time, but now is your time to show them the value. And this is why I said, when we start developing our own strategy based on the health check and the corporate strategy, you would see the company strategy, where they are going. And then you would suggest for them what you would see the best strategy in cybersecurity. So as you remember, we talked about developing the vision and mission and getting the endorsement from the higher management. If you get their endorsement there and you involve them in the interview workshops and in the different iterations, they will start feeling committed and they will be on board. So, and after you develop that, you could also ask the corporate strategy team to embed or to add the cybersecurity in their strategy as well. They will start seeing the value of it. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions? Okay, are you using a software to assign and manage the execution and measuring as per your step 4? We are developing in-house because there's no tool that I'm aware of that has the full functionality and customized in the way that we see more fit. So we're developing our own in-house tool. And I think it's, if you understand the formula and you have a business analysis, they can easily develop something for you as well. So it's not complicated. It's just a way of measurement. And you can use different tools like Power BI, you can use SharePoint, you can use, or a mix of these tools as well. Okay, so I think we'll wrap up. I think these are all the questions. Thank you, everyone. And again, I'm looking forward to attend all the other sessions. I'm really honored and proud, and congratulations and thank you to the women in cybersecurity Middle East for all their efforts in the past 2 years and in this first virtual conference that we see a big success. Thank you very much and see you again.